I don't know, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Commission, Commissioner Portillo and Commissioner Villarreal had asked regarding how much or what have we spent on the funds that we received from the $3,060,000 lawsuit from AEP that that the city received way back in April of 2013. And this particular report it shows you, and you have a handout of the amount of money that has been spent from those funds, which totals to $393,142. And there's a breakdown of all the expenditures that have been charged to this particular account, going back to beginning the Market Square revitalization, 166,000, et cetera, that are listed in that schedule. Total of $383,142. So there's still a balance of $2,666,858. And my understanding is that some of you wanted to know how we can distribute the remaining funds. So I mean, we're here to hear you.
Thank you, Pete. Are there any comments or questions?
Pete, news to me. We already had $39,000 on the relocation of the Stillman House. Yet this board has never voted on receiving it, transferring it. $14,000 to move it from Cueto to the park? Really? Without it coming to the City Commission? We've got issues. We need to know about this. If this is going to be going on, even though it's under the threshold and city manager is allowed to do it, we need to know. Because these monies are being spent and this commission is being caught off guard. We're proposing projects that need to come up in the future for funding. And you start seeing things like this. I've got questions, guys. I've got serious questions that need to get answered because at the end of the day, I need to answer to them. I need to answer to the people of Brownsville. And this is not going to be accepted. So we need to know what is going on because when we make our decisions, we're the ones that need to answer to the people. And this is just not going to be able to happen anymore. I'm sorry, but we need to talk.
Are there any other questions?
Well, why didn't it come before the commission if it exceeds the threshold?
It didn't exceed the threshold. It was under both times, so it didn't get mentioned to the commission.
Well, and maybe legal, this is a question for legal. If a project, the combined total of the project exceeds the threshold, shouldn't it be coming before the commission?
Yes. We don't have to ask legal for that.
Okay, well, if this, so your answer is yes, so why didn't this one come before the commission?
Well, you're being told by Commissioner Longoria that it didn't exceed the threshold.
I have a question. So what's your threshold?
The first time it was moved, it was 25,000. The second time it was 14,000. But yet at neither time, because it was under the threshold and the city manager was able to approve, it didn't come to us.
Just for clarification, what is the threshold?
35,000.
45?
35,000.
But this is 39.
I have a question.
Well, we've moved it twice.
I'm sorry?
We moved it from its location.
But that's what I'm getting at, that the combined
The
total
location
exceeds.
was outside of this city, and it was brought to Brownsville by a company. We had no option but to pay the company. Then it was relocated to the Lineal Park months later.
Charlie, but the combined total exceeds the threshold that you're
We did not
authorized.
realize that we were going to relocate this twice, so it's two separate bills to relocate this.
But you didn't know what the total cost of the relocation was before
We didn't
you
know it was
accepted it?
coming.
No.
The second time, they didn't anticipate moving it the second time, so it wouldn't have crossed the threshold the first time.
Remember that the Cueto building was leased to the university, and they required parking location, and also we're working on fixing that parking lot or doing the parking lot, so that house had to be moved for that to occur. Now,
Before you moved it the second time, Charlie,
yes,
they gave you a cost of what it was going to cost to move it, correct?
they gave us a
And
cost.
at that
yes.
time, you realized that it was going to exceed the threshold of
It didn't exceed the
35,000.
threshold. This is the second
Commissioner,
time
at
we
the
moved
time
the
of the
place.
first contract, it wasn't contemplated they were going to have to move it the second time.
I understand, but the
at the-
second time that, and what I'm getting
but
at
that
is,
doesn't make
if
it a
the
one-
project,
I
if the project
understand.
exceeds the threshold, and at the time you realize that it's gonna exceed the threshold, wouldn't it make more sense to bring it before the commission when you are aware and you know that it's going to exceed before you take that action on your own?
I think what they're
No.
trying to say is there were two separate projects, even though it's the same house. But I also understand what Commissioner Chavez is saying, that we should be informed. I mean, that's not pocket change, it's a lot of money.
Speaking of,
And-
oh, sorry.
And we need I mean, whether the orders come from a certain commission member, I'm sorry?
Or mayor.
Or mayor. I mean, I think we should at least, in our Friday letter or packet, be informed, even though it doesn't exceed the threshold. I mean, just for transparency, and I mean, I've heard of things third hand that I don't know about from the public asking me questions, and I don't know about them.
Take for example, right now, why was the house moved?
Well, one of the reasons that the house was moved is because we leased out the Cueto to the university, and we're initiating a project to build a parking lot there.
And
That's-
construction has already taken place on that parking lot. That's why the house was taken out. Correct?
In-house construction by our people is being done, relocating of trees and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Whether it's being done in-house or not, it is being done.
yes.
And yet, members of the city commission didn't know until Friday that it was going on. I'm not getting on you, Charlie. What I'm getting at is that we still have...
That concern has been addressed by me to our attorney. Our attorney has met with people that are working on the project. One of the concerns we have is we have not received any payment from the university in relation to the lease of that facility, nor have we finalized any agreements as to who's going to pay for the parking.
But yet we don't even know...
To my opinion, the commission agreed. The commission voted for either or. We received funding, rent, or we build a parking lot. So that is being worked on as we speak.
We did discuss.
So that's been
Hang on.
delayed. That's been delayed until we finalize the agreements in working with our attorneys and other attorneys, outside attorneys that have been working on the specifics of that agreement.
We did discuss when we purchased the land and agreed to the lease that there was going to be a need for a parking lot. We did
Correct.
discuss that.
That's
So
correct.
Having
That's
the
correct.
parking lot is not a surprise.
It's
But
not-
I think, well, I think that goes beyond the scope of what the project
I wasn't
is.
finished. The house was going to have to be moved. Is the question is your question about taking the funding from this pot of money or moving it at all? Because they're two separate
My
issues.
question is, any project, the cumulative of any project that is going to exceed the threshold should come before the commission regardless of how you pay it out to try and not bring it before the commission. If you know, if city staff knows that any project is going to exceed that threshold, whether you break it up into 2 pieces, 3 pieces, or 4 pieces, should come before the commission.
I agree. We'll do that.
And also the issue at hand here is not to place blame on anyone, but it's just the funds that are being used right now, rather than spend them just rather aloofly, maybe have some sort of budget for the remaining of the funds and see how we can leverage our monies the best way possible. So that was ideally what we wanted to discuss right now.
That's
And
absolutely correct. That is $3 million that was awarded to the city. It's in our coffers. Specifically, it was placed in a separate line item because we understood in speaking to the commission that they were going to have viable projects for that money. So one of the things we wanted to bring to the commission today, based on some of the speaking to some of you, is that you want to have a say in how that funding or how that money is going to be spent in the future. We're letting you know exactly what has been spent, how much is left, and obtain ideas from you as to how we should
Well, I think we
spend
need
the
to
remaining.
develop, like Debbie says, a budget for these monies, and before any projects are considered, any expenditures are made, that those projects can be for the commission so that we can evaluate them and calculate how much or allocate a certain amount to each project. But I'm very concerned that I do want to make clear that any project that exceeds that threshold with regards to any amounts that you distribute, you should bring it before the commission.
We bring any project that exceeds the $35,000 threshold has been brought to the commission, including projects that were under the threshold when we have purchased properties in the downtown area. Properties that were under $35,000 have been brought to the commission. Make you aware that there's developing projects in the downtown area, developing purchases in the downtown area under the threshold we have brought to the commission for you to approve, which you have.
I have a quick question, Charlie, or Pete, I'm sorry. This 609 East 11th Street that we've spent $42,000 at, what is that?
That's some purchase of some properties.
That is a location on 11th Street within the Market Square area where 3 individual properties, I believe, were purchased at one time for separate prices.
Which we approved.
You were
Those little
And
That came before the
locations,
commission.
And all those 3 pieces of property came before the commission.
Those were approved by the city commission.
Okay,
and they're
just
currently
asking.
being renovated.
I'm sorry. My main concern on this is money's being spent because it's under the threshold. Okay?
Right.
And then they come to us on a report. And I don't know, it's never been a common practice at the city for these kinds of requests to be able to come and being made. And then all of a sudden, I see it in a report. And you and I have to answer to people. And, these are legit expenses.
For that reason,
Property at 500.
for that reason, we're here presenting to you.
Yeah, but it's
what
already
has
been spent.
It's already been spent. It's been under the threshold, but you all need to be made aware of this, so we can finalize exactly what we're going to do in the future with this funds, with this amount of money that was given to the city, so you can have knowledge of that, and so we can have a clean slate, because we are doing some of these things, and we have not informed the commission until now exactly what's happening.
I have another question.
Okay,
Sorry.
perhaps we can, I'm sorry.
I have a quick question. The Downtown Revitalization Info Center, is that operating? What is that?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry,
The
Commissioner.
Downtown Revitalization Info Center, is that operating? What is that?
That is a facility that was rented right across from these projects, a facility that's been rented for the purpose of having a location to meet in our efforts to organize the efforts that are being conducted downtown. It was a contractual agreement drafted by our attorneys and signed by the person that owns that facility there.
But if we already own buildings, example, Peter's office,
Right.
we have the space in there. Why do we have to be spending this amount of money to have an office when we already own the properties?
That's a great question, Commissioner. I think you need to meet with the commission as a whole and with the mayor to get that answered. It was my question exactly as well. But based
Your
on
question to who?
Could you please?
to the mayor who asked me that he wanted that space rented out. First and foremost, we have to get an agreement, a contractual agreement done to do that. So that was done and prepared.
Perhaps we can schedule a workshop at a future date
No,
to
we need to set
discuss
up an
this.
executive session.
Okay, an executive session at a future date to discuss this item further.
Has a contract been signed on that?
Yes, sir.
It's already open.
And the city commission knew nothing about it?
Nothing.
There we go.
I think it's a good idea to do executive and to also do the workshop.
So Pete, in that executive session, can you provide us with recommendations on the remaining budget?
Yeah, there's some that I could easily tell you right now or ask you. We do have a problem with the elevator at El Tapiz, and that's something that we need to be in compliance with certain federal regulations because we need to, obviously we need the elevator fixed, and that's going to cost approximately, it's just an estimated number of $285,000. There's also the roof at El Tapiz that needs to be fixed, and that's about $153,000. So those are just two items that we desperately need to get repaired.
The roof is I'm sorry, Mr. Gonzalez, the roof is an agenda item on this packet.
Right.
The funds that are proposed on that item, are they from here or somewhere else?
Well, right now, there's an item on the agenda for approval, so that means either next week or next meeting, we can have a budget amendment. And obviously, our recommendation would to use these funds for that particular expenditure.
Okay, so you will take care of setting that up? This is not a public comment. Anything else before we close the item?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Pete and Charlie.
Move to acknowledge?